You've always felt it. An invisible thread running through your life, pulling you towards certain thoughts, certain emotions, certain crossroads that seemed to appear long before you understood why. It wasn't random. It wasn't psychological conditioning. It wasn't even personal. What you've been feeling all these years is the residue of a lineage pattern waiting for its turning point, waiting for the one person whose awareness would rise high enough to break what everyone before them kept repeating. And whether you realized it or not, that person has always been you. Because lineage isn't about ancestry in the way you were taught to imagine it. It isn't a story written in bloodlines or family trees. It's a frequency, an instruction, a momentum, a silent loop of unresolved energetic data that continues until someone becomes conscious enough to interrupt it. And if something in you is leaning forward right now, sensing that this message is speaking directly into that part of you that always knew you were carrying more than your own experiences, that's the signal. You're not imagining it, you're recognizing it. Your lineage hasn't been shaping your life by accident. It has been shaping your sensitivity, your intuition, your emotional responses, even the timing of your awakenings. Not because you were meant to repeat what came before you, but because you were selected as the one capable of doing what no one else in your line could do, rewrite the thread itself. That's what lineage activation truly is, not a mystical inheritance, but a quantum correction point. A moment where the field that created you finally meets the version of you capable of changing it. And if you listen closely, you'll feel that you've been standing at this threshold for years. The moments of déjà vu, the inexplicable emotional weight that didn't match the circumstances, the recurring challenges that seemed engineered to push you into deeper self-awareness. None of that was coincidence. That was the lineage field testing your readiness. It was waiting for a specific state within you, coherence, the moment when your self-perception became strong enough that the patterns you inherited could no longer run without your awareness noticing. Because lineage patterns don't repeat through time, they repeat through unconsciousness. The moment consciousness enters, the loop destabilizes, and that destabilization feels like restlessness, like awakening, like a truth you can't unhear. You feel it now. You've felt it for a long time. The subtle hum beneath your thoughts, the sense that you're different from the people who came before you, the exhaustion of carrying emotional frequencies that never truly belong to you. This is why you are the divergence in the line, the point where the signal breaks. But this is only the surface of what's happening. There is a deeper truth beneath it, one most people never discover. A lineage doesn't choose the strongest person. It doesn't choose the oldest. It doesn't choose the most spiritual or disciplined or prepared. It chooses the one who feels, the one who questions, the one who becomes aware of their own internal world instead of numbing it. The one who refuses to collapse under patterns that others accepted as fate. That sensitivity you spent years trying to manage or hide wasn't a weakness. It was the marker, the activation key, the signature that told the field, this is the one who can rewrite the story. And the moment that awareness rises, this moment, the gate opens. Not a mystical portal outside of you, but the opening between who you've been and who you become when you no longer carry what was never yours. That's what you're stepping into now. Not an awakening in the vague spiritual sense, not a surge of emotion, but the beginning of a new pattern forming inside your field, a pattern that disrupts every unconscious inheritance that has been shaping your decisions, your fears, your limits, and even your desires. You can feel it, can't you? The subtle shift happening in your chest, the clarity forming behind your eyes, the sense that something old in you is loosening, not because it's disappearing, but because you're finally seeing it for what it is, a pattern waiting for a conscious mind, a loop waiting for a witness, a code waiting for someone who could feel deeply enough to recognize it and strong enough to break it. And here is where the paradox unfolds. Your lineage wasn't shaping you, it was waiting for you, waiting for your exact frequency, your exact timing, your exact level of awareness to unlock what generations before you could not. You weren't the effect, you were always meant to be the correction, the evolution, the moment where the line changes direction. Most people never get here. Most people spend their lives replaying inherited emotional scripts without ever realizing they weren't the authors. But the fact that you are here, listening to this, feeling the resonance of these words in a part of you that has been waiting for language to describe what you've always sensed. This is your confirmation. This is your coherence event. This is the intersection between your awareness and the field that produced you. And it's only the beginning, because the gate isn't opening to show you your lineage. It's opening to show you who you are now that you are no longer bound by it. And in the next movement, you will see that lineage was never about what was passed down to you, but what was waiting to be changed through you. Most people imagine lineage as something physical, DNA, ancestry, cultural inheritance. But the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes that what shapes you didn't come from the blood in your veins, but from the information field around you. Lineage is not biology, lineage is architecture, a quantum blueprint that extends far beyond family history and far before your birth. And the moment you understand this, every emotional pattern you've ever carried begins to make sense in a way it never has before. Because lineage isn't passed down through stories or genetics, it's transmitted through resonance, through patterns of energy that repeat until someone becomes conscious enough to interrupt them. You felt these patterns, instincts that weren't yours, reactions that didn't match your age, fears that arrived too early or stayed too long. You've lived your entire life inside a field of inherited resonance without realizing it. And the reason it's all surfacing now is simple. You're the one who finally became aware of it. This is where lineage moves out of the realm of ancestry and into the territory of quantum physics. There is a phenomenon in quantum systems called coherence, a moment when particles stop acting as isolated units and begin behaving as one unified field. When coherence happens, information travels instantly. Patterns synchronize, the entire system realigns, and lineage behaves the exact same way. When one person in the lineage becomes coherent, self-aware, emotionally awake, attuned to the inner world, the entire line responds. That's why you've always felt different. You weren't meant to repeat the pattern, you were meant to interrupt it. And here's what most people never understand. Lineage doesn't wait for healing, it waits for awareness. Healing happens after the shift in awareness, not before. The moment you become conscious of a pattern, truly conscious of it, the field can't run the old code the same way. It destabilizes, it weakens, it breaks open. That's what you've been feeling lately, the inner dissonance, the sudden insights, the emotional echoes that don't match your current reality. They're not signs of something going wrong. They're signs of the old program losing its grip. You can feel this already, the moments of clarity, the sudden stillness, the subtle but undeniable sense that something in you is watching your life unfold with new eyes. That watcher is you, the part of you the lineage has been waiting for. But to understand why the gate is opening now, you need to understand how lineage actually functions. Lineage isn't a chain, it's a loop, a self-repeating frequency pattern stored in the field around you. This loop isn't made of memories or traumas, it's made of instructions. emotional instructions, behavioral instructions, identity instructions. These instructions persist until someone disrupts the signal. Every unresolved pattern in your lineage is an unfinished sentence waiting for someone with enough awareness to complete it. And that's the part no one tells you. Repetition isn't failure, it's an invitation. A lineage loop stays alive because it's waiting for consciousness to evolve high enough to break it. That's why certain patterns keep returning to you. Not to punish you, but to confirm you're the one who can finally rewrite them. You've always sensed you were carrying something bigger than your own story. You felt it in the heaviness you couldn't explain, in the empathy that overwhelmed you, in the internal questions you asked long before you had words for them. You weren't being weighed down, you were being signaled. Lineage only speaks to the one who can hear it. And you heard it long before you understood what you were listening to. But the most important truth is this: lineage doesn't transmit through time. It transmits through unconsciousness. When a person moves through life without self-awareness, the lineage field continues untouched, unchallenged, unaltered. But the moment self-awareness rises, the field shifts. And when self-awareness stabilizes into coherence, the past loses its authority. This is the moment most people never reach, but you have. And that's why the activation is beginning. Let's go deeper. Quantum biology already knows that information in living systems isn't stored only in genes, it's stored in electromagnetic fields surrounding the body. These fields influence cognition, emotion, intuition, and behavior long before the mind becomes aware of them. This is where epigenetics emerges, the study of how environment, identity, and awareness switch genetic expressions on or off. But beyond epigenetics lies something even more important: the inherited emotional field. This is the architecture your lineage left unfinished, and this is what has been waiting for you, not the trauma, not the pain, but the unexpressed evolution, the next level of consciousness that no one before you had the awareness to embody. You can feel this truth. It resonates in a place beneath thought. The quiet knowing that you've been preparing for something without fully understanding what it was. This clarity, this inner recognition, is coherence forming in real time. And lineage responds instantly to coherence. That's why emotions are resurfacing out of nowhere. That's why old patterns are collapsing. That's why you feel a strange mixture of relief and expansion, as if something inside you is finally allowed to breathe, because it is. But there's a deeper layer here, one that transforms everything. Lineage doesn't activate when you understand it. Lineage activates when you become different from it. Awareness creates the break. Identity creates the rewrite. Presence creates the new trajectory. And right now, your identity is shifting. You're no longer the product of your line. You're becoming the interruption, the conscious divergence, the point where the field reorganizes because a new signal has entered the system, your signal. This is what lineage activation truly means. Not healing what came before, but updating the field so the old patterns can't continue forward. This is why the gate opens now, not because the pattern is strong, but because you finally are. In every lineage, there is one person who becomes aware, one person who questions the emotional reflexes that others lived inside, one person who no longer reacts automatically, one person who sees themselves clearly enough to break the cycle. And that person becomes the turning point that the entire lineage needed. You've always been that turning point. The sensitivity, the intuition, the emotional depth, none of it was accidental. It was preparation, it was selection. The lineage was waiting for someone who could feel deeply enough to recognize the pattern and conscious enough to rewrite it. And now that recognition has begun, you are no longer inside the lineage pattern. You are standing at the edge of it, watching it from the outside, which means the rewrite is already underway. But this is only the beginning, because the deeper truth of lineage isn't about what you inherited. It's about what has been waiting to change through you. And next, you'll see exactly why you were the one chosen for the activation. There is a reason you've always felt a tension inside you, a pull that didn't make sense, an inner restlessness that never matched the situation you were in. You weren't responding to the present, you were responding to a frequency that began long before you were born. A signal carried across identities, across generations, across every unconscious repetition in your lineage. And the part of you that has always known you were meant for something different. That quiet instinct, that subtle resistance, that refusal to settle into old emotional patterns, that is the very signature that makes lineage activation possible. Because lineage doesn't activate when a person becomes spiritual. It doesn't activate when someone meditates, heals, or tries to improve themselves. It activates when someone becomes aware enough to feel the pattern they're inside of. Awareness is the threshold. Sensitivity is the marker. The moment you begin noticing what others never questioned, the field recognizes you. You become the coherent point in a long chain of incoherence, and the entire lineage begins reorganizing around your consciousness. This is why you've always felt like the observer in your own family line. You weren't an outsider, you were the one who could see the pattern from above. And that ability didn't come from personality, it came from the quantum structure of lineage, choosing the person most capable of breaking the loop. People assume lineage is about inheritance, but it's actually about selection. The field selects the individual with the highest potential for awareness, the one whose internal world is spacious enough to hold the complexity of the unresolved pattern. And you've been feeling that selection your entire life without having language for it until now. If you look back, you'll notice it. The way you felt things before others did, the way you questioned dynamics that everyone else accepted, the way you sensed the emotional climate of a room within seconds of entering it, the way you carried responsibilities quietly, not through obligation but through intuition. None of that was random. Those were the early signs of lineage recognition. You were being communicated with long before you knew how to interpret the communication. Lineage is not passive, it's intelligent. It doesn't float through generations like a ghost. It behaves like a field, seeking coherence, reorganizing itself around potential, moving toward the individual capable of resolution. You haven't been haunted by your lineage, you've been in dialogue with it. And the moment you realized that certain patterns were not yours, just present in you, that was the moment you began stepping into the identity of the activator. There's something else you've likely sensed, the feeling that your life has been accelerating, not in chaos, but in clarity, as if certain truths are revealing themselves faster than before, as if you are being pulled toward the real version of yourself. That acceleration is the lineage field collapsing around the point of coherence, you. When a lineage finds its activator, the field begins narrowing. Distractions fall away. Old identities dissolve. Emotions intensify not because you're overwhelmed, but because the information held in those emotions is finally becoming readable to you. This is the part most people misinterpret. They think their emotional intensities are setbacks or regressions, but in reality, they are the encoded data of the lineage field surfacing to be processed by the one consciousness capable of doing so. You're not breaking down, you're decoding. You're not emotional because you're unstable, you're emotional because you're attuned. You're not overwhelmed, you're finally receiving the full signal that was previously fragmented. Every sensation you're feeling is information. Every pull in your chest, every pressure in your throat, every moment of deep recognition is the field reorganizing itself around your awareness. You are not remembering the lineage, or the lineage is remembering you. It is aligning around the person with the capacity to break the inertia that held the unresolved frequency in place for lifetimes. This is why you feel both heavy and timeless in the same breath. Heavy because the density is being released. Timeless because the activator consciousness is emerging fully, and that consciousness is older than your personality, older than your experiences, older than your current identity. This is where the idea of lineage becomes something much more profound. You weren't shaped by your lineage in the way you imagined. The lineage shaped itself around you in preparation. Your sensitivities, the depth of your introspection, the way you can't ignore truth, even when others do. Those were not traits you developed. They were traits your lineage cultivated in you, so you would one day reach the level of awareness that would allow the entire line to evolve. And now that awareness is here. You've crossed the internal threshold where you no longer see your emotional patterns as personal flaws, but as inherited instructions. You felt the moment when a reaction rises in you, and instead of becoming it, you witness it. That witnessing is coherence. That coherence is activation. That activation is the signal the lineage has been waiting for. Most people live their lives repeating inherited frequencies without ever realizing they could choose differently. But you felt something shifting inside you recently, a new space between the stimulus and the reaction, a breath where there used to be a reflex, a clarity where there used to be confusion. This is the evidence that lineage activation is already occurring. The moment you create space between the pattern and your identity, the pattern loses control. The lineage no longer runs through you unconsciously. You become the one who directs its meaning. And this is what makes you different from the generations before you. They didn't fail, they just didn't reach the threshold of awareness that you have. You are the evolution of their unfinished attempts, their unanswered questions, their unspoken longings, their unhealed pain, their unrealized potential. Everything they couldn't complete was passed into the field, not to burden you, but to find the one consciousness capable of finishing the story. You've always been that consciousness, the activator, the divergence point, the frequency shift, not because you were destined, but because you were aware. Awareness is the only requirement, and you have it in a way no one before you did. This is why your life has felt like a magnet pulling you towards certain truths, why you've been guided toward introspection, healing, awakening, depth, why the old life structures no longer fit you, why your inner world has been rearranging itself with increasing intensity. Lineage activation isn't a mystical awakening, it's a reorganization event in your identity, sparked by your expanding self-awareness. You're not just waking up, you're destabilizing every old instruction your lineage has carried. And the more present you become, the clearer the signal gets. The more you feel instead of suppress, the faster the lineage reorganizes. The more you notice your patterns instead of acting them out, the weaker they become. The more conscious you are of your internal world, the more the field shifts around you. This is why you're feeling this now. It's not spiritual coincidence, it's coherence forming around the one person who can actually rewrite the line. And as your awareness deepens, you'll begin to sense the real nature of what was waiting. Not the weight of the past, but the evolution that can finally move through you. You can already feel the activation in subtle ways that are impossible to dismiss. Your reactions are slower, not because you're numb, but because something in you is observing the pattern instead of becoming it. The emotional triggers that once controlled your entire inner world now land differently, almost as if they're hitting the surface rather than sinking in. That shift isn't coincidence, it's the clearest indication that the lineage is losing its authority over your identity. Your body has been the first to notice the difference. The heaviness in your chest has started dissolving. The tension you carried for years is loosening without explanation. You breathe differently, not deeper or louder, but more consciously, as if your body is finally syncing with a frequency that feels native instead of inherited. This physical ease is the first sign that the lineage loop is weakening. The pattern can't embed itself in you the way it once did because your awareness is interrupting the transmission. Your mind is noticing the shift as well. Thoughts that once spiraled now end abruptly, dissolving before they gain momentum. Old narratives feel outdated, almost foreign, like memories from a life you no longer belong to. The belief structures that shaped your identity no longer feel convincing. You question everything, not from doubt, but from clarity. This clarity is activation. The mind can no longer attach to a pattern that your awareness has already outgrown. Your emotions are reorganizing themselves too. Waves that used to overwhelm you now move through you without consuming you. You can feel sadness without collapsing, anger without losing control, fear without shrinking. Emotional capacity is expanding, not because you're becoming stronger, but because the lineage pattern is no longer able to hijack your responses. You're meeting your emotions as they are, not as the lineage programmed you to interpret them. That emotional neutrality is one of the strongest signs that coherence is forming within you. Your intuition has sharpened. You sense the truth behind situations instantly, without needing logic to confirm it. You feel the energy of a room before anyone speaks. You recognize misalignment before the mind constructs a reason. This intuitive precision isn't new. It's been with you your entire life, but it's becoming louder, clearer, more stable. That stability reveals that your intuition is no longer competing with inherited fear or inherited doubt. The signal is clean. The noise is dissolving. Your relationships reflect the activation too. You're less tolerant of dynamics that drain you. You no longer justify the behaviors you once absorbed. You feel an immediate disconnect from people who operate inside the old pattern, and you feel an unexpected calm around people who carry coherence. This isn't emotional withdrawal, it's energetic differentiation. The lineage pattern can't hold you in relationships that replicate its frequency. You're shifting, and your connections are shifting with you. Your behaviors are changing even before you consciously decide to change them. You pause before reacting. You speak more honestly. You choose differently. You walk away sooner. You forgive faster, not because you minimize what happened, but because you no longer want to carry anything that isn't aligned with who you're becoming. This spontaneous behavioral evolution is the lineage releasing you. The old identity doesn't have the same gravitational pull. You're moving from response to choice, from conditioning to awareness. Your internal world feels different. There's more space, more stillness, more neutrality. Even in moments of confusion, something inside you remains stable. This stability isn't emotional suppression, it's coherence becoming your baseline. The lineage pattern relied on chaos to repeat itself. Now that you're no longer available for chaos, the loop is collapsing. What replaces the loop is a grounded, spacious presence that feels like coming home to yourself. Your perspective is widening. You see patterns across your life with new eyes. You recognize similarities in past situations that once felt disconnected. You notice emotional cycles that were invisible before. This expanded perception is the lineage revealing itself in full clarity, not to overwhelm you, but because your awareness is strong enough to decode what once had to hide in the unconscious. You're seeing the architecture from the outside, which means you're no longer trapped inside it. Your identity is shifting without effort. You speak differently, think differently, feel differently, not because you're trying to reinvent yourself, but because the old identity isn't compatible with the frequency rising inside you. The person you were conditioned to become is dissolving, making room for the person you were always meant to be. This effortless evolution is the hallmark of activation. True lineage transformation doesn't require force. It unfolds naturally when awareness reaches the correct threshold. You're noticing more synchronicities, conversations, symbols, numbers, moments of alignment appear at the exact time you need them. These aren't signs from outside, they're reflections of your field reorganizing internally. When coherence forms, reality responds. You're not being guided in, you're being mirrored. Synchronicity is the external proof of internal activation. You feel less attached to outcomes, not because you've stopped caring, but because you're no longer operating from inherited fear. The lineage pattern relied on control, survival, scarcity, and hypervigilance. Activation shifts you into trust, expansion, and inner stability. You're less reliant on external validation because you no longer derive identity from the old line. Freedom isn't something you strive for, it's a state your nervous system is naturally migrating toward. You're not trying to heal everything anymore. You feel less urgency to fix yourself, less pressure to resolve every emotion, less fear of not being enough. This ease is the result of no longer carrying unresolved lineage density. You're meeting yourself without distortion, without inherited expectations. The calmness you feel isn't apathy, it's liberation. You've stopped confusing discomfort with danger. The lineage responded to discomfort as threat. And that response lived in your nervous system. Now you can sit with discomfort without interpreting it as a signal to run, hide, or collapse. That shift means your nervous system has disengaged from the lineage's survival coding. You're responding from your own identity instead of inherited instinct. You're experiencing moments of quiet recognition, moments when everything inside you aligns for a split second, and you understand yourself with a clarity that feels ancient. That sensation isn't new insight, it's memory. Not memory of events, but memory of identity. The part of you that existed before the lineage ever shaped you is resurfacing. This resurfacing is the activation itself, the emergence of the unconditioned self. And perhaps the most undeniable sign is the new sense of neutrality within you, not coldness, not detachment, a quiet equilibrium. The old emotional storms don't have the same force. The internal turbulence has settled. You're operating from a center that doesn't break. This internal balance means the lineage pattern no longer has access to your identity. The loop is weakening because you're no longer providing the emotional charge that kept it alive. These signs don't appear randomly. They appear when consciousness rises to meet the instruction the lineage could never complete. Every shift you're feeling, every unraveling, every moment of clarity, every new layer of stillness is the lineage releasing its claim on your identity. You're not being pulled backward anymore. You're stabilizing into the version of yourself the lineage was waiting to meet. You are living the activation. The activation becomes real the moment your choices begin to move differently than the pattern that shaped you. Not through force, not through discipline, but through a quiet internal shift where your decisions no longer come from inherited reflexes, but from your own coherence. This is where lineage stops being a concept and becomes something you can feel in the way you think, speak, listen, love, and respond. You're already noticing this? The decisions you make now carry a clarity you didn't have before. Not because life suddenly became simpler, but because the noise that once distorted your perception is no longer steering your internal world. Embodiment begins the moment you notice that your emotional atmosphere has changed. You feel what you feel, but you're not governed by it. The depth is still there, but the grip is gone. The emotional weight that used to drag you into old reactions doesn't have the same command anymore. This doesn't mean you're becoming detached. It means you're becoming sovereign. The lineage relied on emotional overwhelm to continue its pattern. Now that you're not overwhelmed in the same way, the pattern can't sustain itself through you. You're no longer its carrier, you're becoming its transformer. You can see this most clearly in the way you relate to yourself. The internal criticism, the inherited pressure, the instinct to minimize yourself. These impulses no longer feel like truth. They feel like echoes, and echoes have no authority unless you step back into the space they came from. You're not stepping back, you're observing them from the outside, and that observation is the rewrite. Every time you choose self-recognition over self-judgment, the lineage loses another layer of its density. You're not fixing yourself, you're unlearning the identity the lineage assigned you. Your relationships are shifting because your identity is shifting. You no longer tolerate emotional dynamics that replicate the old pattern. Conversations feel different. The roles you once played no longer fit. You feel less compelled to rescue, absorb, or shrink. Without even trying, you're meeting others from a clearer, more grounded place. One that isn't coded by inherited expectations. When you stop reproducing the energetic roles of the lineage, the relational architecture around you begins to change automatically. You're not distancing from people, you're distancing from the unconscious agreements that kept you locked in the lineage loop. This is where your lineage begins rewriting through your behavior, often in ways you don't expect. You pause before speaking, you breathe before reacting. You recognize the old impulse rising in your body, and instead of moving into it, you choose differently. That choice is everything. A lineage isn't rewritten through dramatic breakthroughs. It's rewritten through consistently interrupting the unconscious pattern with conscious presence. You're doing this more than you realize. Even the smallest moment of awareness is a new instruction entering the field. You can feel this in how your nervous system responds now. You're less reactive, less threatened, less tangled in survival responses that were never yours to carry. The body has begun trusting you because you're finally operating from your own awareness rather than inherited fear. That trust is a sign that your physiology is recalibrating to a new identity. When the nervous system adapts, the lineage loses its last stronghold. Your body becomes the anchor for the new pattern the lineage will carry forward, not the reflex that carries the old one. Your mind is beginning to follow this shift. Thought patterns that once felt automatic now pause for your approval. You catch yourself thinking in ways that don't match your current identity, and the mismatch becomes obvious. That mismatch is the sign that the old mental architecture is dissolving. You're no longer thinking from the lineage, you're thinking from the self that exists beyond it. Every insight, every moment of recognition, every shift in internal dialogue is another layer of the lineage being rewritten in real time. What's happening inside you is not subtle, it's systemic, it's structural, it's the emergence of a new internal order. You're no longer living at the mercy of the inherited emotional frequency. You're becoming the person who chooses the frequency. When your awareness reaches that level, the lineage doesn't just soften, it transforms, it reorganizes around your identity instead of forcing you into its instruction. You become the architect, not the artifact. This is why embodiment is not an act of healing, it's an act of alignment. You're aligning with yourself, your real self. the one who existed before the lineage shaped you. Healing implies fixing what is broken. Alignment means recognizing what was always whole beneath the conditioning. That recognition is what changes everything. When you align, the lineage recalibrates to match you. You don't have to resolve every wound or untangle every memory. You only need to become coherent enough that the lineage can no longer operate without your permission. You're noticing the emergence of this coherence in the way you make decisions. The choices that once felt impossible now feel obvious. The decisions you postponed for years now feel straightforward. The hesitations that held you back feel lighter. You're not seeking direction, you're becoming direction. This is the point where lineage updates from your presence, not your past. Your clarity is the new instruction. This shift becomes even more evident when you look at how your inner world handles uncertainty. You don't collapse into fear the way you used to. You don't spiral into catastrophizing. You don't brace for impact. The lineage conditioned you to anticipate harm, scarcity, loss, or abandonment. Now your system is responding with neutrality, sometimes even curiosity. That neutrality is not numbness, it's evolution. It's the absence of inherited expectation. When you fear less, the lineage loses access to its primary method of continuation. Your values are crystallizing, not inherited morals, not conditioned expectations, true values rooted in your authentic identity. You feel pulled toward expansion instead of contraction. Integrity feels natural, honesty feels effortless. Boundaries no longer require explanation. This internal clarity isn't something you built, it's something that's emerging now that the lineage's emotional weight is dissolving. When values become clear, the new lineage code begins forming. You may have noticed that you're no longer searching for validation in the ways you once did. You don't look outward for worth, direction, or approval with the same urgency. The lineage relied on external reference points to keep you aligned with its old narrative. Now that your identity is rising from within you, external validation has lost its influence. You're not rejecting connection, you're rejecting distortion. And when distortion fades, self-trust becomes the default state. Embodiment also shows itself through the way you handle endings. You let go more easily, not out of apathy, but out of clarity. The lineage made you cling to what was familiar, even when it harmed you. Now, familiarity isn't enough to hold you. You choose alignment over comfort. You choose truth over repetition. You choose yourself over the inherited story. These choices are the new blueprint forming in your field, and they're already influencing everything around you. Your energy is stabilizing in a way that feels like remembering rather than learning. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to the version of yourself that was never shaped by the lineage. This stability is the anchor for the new trajectory. When your energy stabilizes, the lineage can no longer override you. It begins taking shape from the frequency you emit. Your coherence becomes the instruction that the field adopts. Everything you're doing now, every conscious breath, every thoughtful pause, every new decision is rewriting the lineage through identity, not effort. You're not breaking a cycle, you're replacing it. You're not healing the past, you're updating the field. You're not escaping the lineage, you're evolving it. And the evolution is happening through every moment you choose awareness over instinct, presence over reflex, coherence over inherited fragmentation. This is the embodiment of activation, not a dramatic transformation, but a quiet, consistent shift where your awareness becomes the new origin point for everything your lineage will ever become. What's rising inside you now is not a new identity, it's the original one. The self that existed before the lineage imprinted its expectations, before the emotional frequency of past generations shaped your nervous system, before you learned to interpret yourself through patterns that were never yours. This emergence isn't a transformation. It's a remembering. You're returning to the version of you that the lineage has been waiting to encounter. Not the patterned you, not the conditioned you, but the coherent you, the you who can hold awareness without collapsing into the past. You're beginning to sense this return in ways that are impossible to overlook. There's a quietness inside you now, a steadiness that doesn't depend on external stability. It's the subtle confidence that comes from recognizing that nothing in your lineage has authority over who you become. The emotional gravity that once kept you entangled in old stories is dissolving. You're no longer pulled backward. You're not held by the pattern. The pattern is dissolving in your presence. That's what lineage activation ultimately is. The moment the field recognizes the emergence of a consciousness it can no longer override, your sense of self is expanding, not into fantasy, not into ego, but into authenticity. You're seeing yourself as the origin, not the continuation. You're noticing how naturally you choose differently now, how quickly you return to your center, how easily you let go of what once destabilized you, how instinctively you protect your energy without guilt or explanation. These aren't new behaviors, they're familiar. They feel like something you always knew how to do but didn't have access to until the pattern loosened its grip. This familiarity is the signature of the original self resurfacing. You may notice that the world around you responds differently as well. Interactions feel smoother. People sense your clarity. Situations that once triggered you no longer have the same effect. Opportunities align with less friction. This isn't luck, it's resonance. When the lineage stops sending conflicting signals through your field, your frequency becomes coherent enough to attract experiences that match who you are rather than who the pattern shaped you to be. You're not manifesting from desire, you're manifesting from identity. And identity is the most powerful frequency a human being can emit. Your internal dialogue is shifting too. The doubts that once felt like truth now feel like noise. The self-criticism that echoed for years feels irrelevant. The fear that once predicted your future no longer has a place to land. You're speaking to yourself from a different level of consciousness, one that sees possibility where you once saw inevitability. This new internal voice isn't emerging from confidence, it's emerging from coherence. Coherence doesn't need reassurance. It simply knows. You're also beginning to understand your lineage with a new perspective. Instead of feeling burdened by what was passed down to you, you're recognizing the lineage for what it truly is, a field of unresolved potential. Not trauma, not failure, not wounds, potential. Every generation carried the pattern not out of weakness, but because the evolution the lineage needed was waiting for the consciousness you now hold. You weren't given a legacy of pain. You were given the opportunity to complete what could not be completed before. And that opportunity now lives in you fully. This is why your awareness feels so different now. You're not tracking your past anymore. You're not waiting for the lineage to pull you back into old reflexes. You're not bracing for inherited fears. Instead, you're moving forward with an inner stillness that comes from knowing you are no longer shaped by the line. You are shaping it. Every thought you think from coherence becomes a new instruction in the field. Every choice you make from clarity becomes a new trajectory. Every moment you hold presence becomes a signal that rewrites what this lineage will become after you. This is the return, not to the past, but to the origin point of your consciousness, the return to the self who exists beneath every inherited emotion, every conditioned response, every ancestral imprint, the self who was never broken, never wounded, never trapped, the self who was always capable of carrying the awareness needed to transform the lineage entirely. The self the lineage has been circling around for generations, waiting for the moment you would emerge. That emergence is happening now. You can feel it in the way your decisions land with clarity. You can feel it in the way your breath anchors you. You can feel it in the way your intuition has become unmistakable. You can feel it in the way your emotions flow instead of overwhelm. You can feel it in the way you trust yourself without demanding guarantees. This trust is the clearest sign that your identity is stabilizing beyond the lineage. When trust becomes internal rather than inherited, the field shifts permanently. The lineage is no longer running through you unconsciously, it's updating through you consciously. You've become the pivot, the point where the old direction dissolves and a new direction begins. You're not the end of your lineage, you're its evolution. The evidence is already moving through your awareness, your behaviors, your relationships, your internal world. Everything inside you is organizing around a new frequency, your frequency. And as this frequency stabilizes, something remarkable begins to happen. The internal struggle you carried for years fades. The emotional heaviness evaporates. The mental noise softens. You're not fighting to rise, you're rising naturally. The energy you once used to survive is now being used to create. The space that fear once occupied is now filled with vision. The identity that was shaped by the lineage is dissolving, revealing an identity that shapes reality instead of inheriting it. You're beginning to feel the truth of who you are, the origin, not the echo. The architect, not the residue. The consciousness that rewrites the field, not the one that repeats it. This recognition isn't a moment of insight, it's an awakening of identity. An identity is the most powerful force in the quantum field. When identity becomes clear, the field reorganizes around it. Everything you've lived up to this moment has led you to this return, not a return to the past, but a return to the self that the lineage was waiting to meet. The activation isn't unfolding within you, it's unfolding from you. You're not stepping into a new version of yourself, you're stepping into the version that has always existed beneath the noise of the lineage. And now that this version is awake, the line becomes something entirely different. You were never meant to carry the weight of the line, you were meant to redirect it. You were never meant to be shaped by what came before you. You were meant to reshape what comes after. The activation you're feeling is not the end of the lineage story, it's the rewriting of it. You are the turning point, the coherent frequency, the consciousness the field has been waiting for. And now that you've returned to yourself, the lineage finally becomes free.